We got a lot to get to on the show, and I want to start with Jake Paul. This week, Jake's fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was formally announced with a press conference in LA. Paul and Chavez Jr. will meet in a cruiserweight fight. Jake is coming off a win over Mike Tyson last summer. A lot of people watched that. Chavez Jr. has not fought since beating MMA fighter Uriah Hall just around the same time. Some have said this is a good fight for Jake Paul, Gabe, noting that Chavez is a former world title holder, even though that was more than a decade ago. Others have criticized it as kind of a sideshow, given that Chavez is pushing 40 and probably a decade past his best days. Where do you stand on this? What do you think of this fight?
Well, I had to take some time to think about it, man, because when it was first done, when the fight was first made, I felt that it was just, I kind of compared it a little bit to the Mike Tyson situation. Mike Tyson fight, I don't really consider that an official fight. You know what I mean? Even though it was ruled a official boxing match. But because, Chavez is just very inconsistent. You know what I mean? And, I really don't know his habits. He has a bad track record on, preparing. But look, man, if Chavez comes in at least 60%, then I think Jake really has a fight, because one thing that Chavez has is experience. He may not have the youth, and the agility that Jake has right now, but he does have the experience, and I think that experience would give Jake a problem.
I completely agree with you. I think this is an excellent fight for Jake Paul. Officially, he is 11-1, but he's really like 2-1 as a boxer. He's fought Tommy Fury. He fought a couple of no-name cruiserweights. I guess if you want to throw Mike Perry into that list, you can say he's 3-1. But against guys that are traditional boxers, he's a 2-1 fighter. And he's taking on a guy who at one point was one of the top middleweights in all of boxing, a legitimate former world champion. Well past his best days, but it's a legitimate fight. And the people out there that criticize it, I don't think they appreciate the context. I mean, when guys are coming up the ranks, when they're 2-1, 3-1, they're not fighting great fighters. Do you remember who you fought when you were 2-1?
Well,
I can tell you because I looked it up.
I feel what you're saying, but Jake is on a different level. So, Jake is doing pay-per-views.
Yes.
He's doing Netflix. When you're doing fights of that magnitude on that stage, you kind of do have to match up evenly at least. You know what I mean? So, this fight right here with Chavez, one thing that I think will give Jake problems is the footwork. Just Chavez knowing placement. Because when Chavez is fighting, when Jake is fighting guys like Perry or Nate Diaz, those guys don't understand footwork. Those are MMA guys. Yeah, they can fight. They're fighters, but they're not boxers. See, Chavez, one thing he'll do is he'll understand placement. He'll understand how to place the left hook to the body. And he'll hit Jake with things where the Jake really doesn't see coming. So that'd be a problem. But yeah, just with the level of the platform, I think Jake does have to step it up.
He does, but you're kind of making my point there in that, what would you say this is, a 60-40 fight in favor of Jake? I mean, how would you balance it?
I'll go more like 70.
Okay, but let's assume for the sake of argument,
just because Chavez has to surprise me.
Yeah, let's assume. Let's say Chavez is in shape and is in as good a shape he can be in for a guy that's 39 years old who's been inactive. I mean, for whatever it's worth, his dad's out there saying he's focused, he's ready, he's good, he's going to be at his very best. If he's at his very best at this stage, 65-35, I would favor Jake Paul in it, which I think for a guy, again, in his effectively fourth professional fight, that's not bad. I'm going to read you some of your guys that were on that list. When you were 2-1, you fought a guy named Cecil Yost in Philadelphia. Do you remember Cecil Yost?
Shit,
Probably not. Probably not in that one. When your fifth fight, you fought Mustafa Johnson, who was 3-1 at the time, also in Philadelphia. My point is that Chavez, even at this stage of his career, is a guy with 54 wins on his professional resume, who beat credible guys to win a middleweight title, who had that phenomenal near finish against Sergio Martinez. I understand that was a decade ago, but I don't know how some people look at a Chavez fight and say, oh, it's outrageous that he's fighting Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He should be fighting someone much more credible. Jake Paul is still building his credibility as a fighter.
Yeah.
He's not there yet.
No, for sure. I think it's more based on just the behavior from Chavez. I think that's what it really comes down to. You know, his in and out of rehab, you know, always having problems and not being consistent, coming in a fight out of shape or out of. So, you know, it's more that, you know what I mean, where people are judging him on. You know, if he was a guy that, for instance, me and Chavez are the same age. Now, I wasn't a world champion like Chavez, but if the fight was between me and Jake, people would say that's a fight because, you know, of my track record. You know, they know
more active.
I come to fight.
Incredible fights much more recently.
Where Chavez is very, very inconsistent. And then you got to remember, he was a world champion, but it was almost kind of...
He was navigated well by Top
He was
Rank.
navigated.
He was navigated well.
Yeah, it wasn't your normal
best
route.
win was Andy Lee.
Exactly, and he looked phenomenal against Andy Lee. But it wasn't your usual route to the world title.
And again, that was like 2012.
Yeah,
like 2011, 12.
For
like it
sure.
was such a long. You're right. He's getting this fight because of his name. Like,
but you know, like I said, I think Chavez is at a point where he does have to redeem himself, and I think that he does have a lot of regrets in what he's done in his career and where he should have been. You know, I think he does look at a guy like Canelo and said, man, if I would have just dedicated myself, I could have been what Canelo is right now. So I think, you know, with maturity, you learn from your mistakes. And I think it's an opportunity for Chavez to go like, man, I could redeem myself right now. You know, you know, we saw with Chris Eubank and how his father united together. It was beautiful, right? That's something that can happen between Chavez and his father. You know, there's always there's static in that relationship where maybe this is an opportunity where they can kind of, you know, do something that's amazing.
And look, this might be for Jake the second fight that I'm not 100% sure he's going to win. Like the Tommy Fury fight was one. That was probably a 50-50-ish type of fight. It played out that way in the ring. But the Tyrone Woodleys, the Nate Robinsons, the Ben Askrens. Don't get me started on Mike Tyson. I never in a million... I won so much money betting Jake Paul by decision. I won more money betting Jake Paul by decision than I've ever won betting on boxing ever.
That's
ever.
wow.
Like, to me, there was no chance on God's earth that a 58-year-old Mike Tyson was going to be able to hurt Jake Paul. Nor did I think that with 2-minute rounds and bigger gloves, Jake Paul was going to be able to score a knockout. Like, by decision was a almost mortal lock. This one... I favored Jake to win for all the reasons you laid out there. But can I see a pathway to victory for Chavez Jr.? Absolutely. If he is in the best shape he's been in since his middleweight title days, if he's focused, he is still a better boxer than Jake Paul. Like, he is still a more accomplished boxer than Jake Paul. And he's big enough and historically has had a good enough chin that I think he has the potential to pose a lot of problems to Jake in this fight.
No, for sure. His last fight was Uriah
Hall last summer.
Okay, I called that fight. Now, I feel that Chavez's performance was a little more like it was a sparring session. It was his first fight back in a while. He didn't look horrible, but, you know, again, Uriah is a guy that's he's a UFC guy, so he's not punching... You know, he's not technically sound.
He didn't throw a lot of punches in that fight.
He didn't. He threw a lot of punches in that fight. You know, so Chavez went by, I think it was an 8-rounder. He didn't look fatigued or anything like that. So, you know, I believe that Chavez will come in better shape. So, you know, I hope he does because it will be a great fight. It will be a great fight. If Chavez takes this serious, it will be a great fight.
Yeah.